Histories of NicNevin. Somewhere in the dearth of light that fails to pierce the dense canopy of gnarled branches in those fairy forests of ancient Scotland, you may hear tell of a woman all alone with a stark stare. Her strange white rags catch the light, and then your eyewitness, whomever he may be, can't explain anything further. I say he, because nary a woman would be crazy enough to venture out there to go and see. Well, all right, some women would, the weird ones, but we'll talk of them later. I fancy myself one who comes to the point, provided I maintain my focus. Where was I? Yes, the strange woman in the woods. Yes, she's a sight. There is many a version of her sightings over the centuries, because it's a rare convergence of many kinds of luck to even behold her presence. It is indeed rare. Not rare like sun in December rare, but rare. Now, because she is only seen in the forests, I think we can safely assume that it be the forest in which she lives, or lived. Who knows if she's still there? Well, where else would she go? There hasn't been a sighting in the last couple of decades, but what is that to the centuries, eh? Also, were she to set foot on the wide sweeping highlands to breathe in that air that makes Scottish patriots of us all, I think someone would have caught a glimpse. No, she's there, in the forest. That's all the proof needed. The kids these days think they know everything. It's been decades, they say. You do realise how impossible that is, that it could be the same person over and over being seen for hundreds of years. Why do you believe in that fairy stuff? Oh, these kids. So lost. You know what I tell them? I say, I know you believe in a Big Bang and a multiverse, and I know that you have your own priesty scientists on high and your bishops and experts to preach to you that somehow you are the first generation to magically know everything when you were born, but I would just as soon go back to the sensible respect of the forces I don't understand and fearing the God who gives me reasons to be grateful. So, you have your belief, and I have mine. Well, that puts a pretty wonderful look upon their face. And I say, God, there, that be another sight I'm grateful I was here for. And because I think of myself a man who always comes back to the subject, let us return to NicNevin. Who's she, you ask? Well, she be the strange woman I was telling you about. That's her name, NicNevin. There is a tangle of legends which has sprouted up around her, not unlike the gnarled branches of boughs in the wild witchy woods of which her wondrous appearances have been whispered. There is some call her the Gyre Colleen, Queen of the Fairies, so she could be rapturous in her beauty, but very well could be an old crone. Or they say she was a beautiful nymph in her youth, who sought refuge from the inevitable advances of, well, some, shall we say, gods with certain appetites. Then she come to these tangled trees and takes a shine to remain here well into her old age and becomes some kind of witch queen. Then there's the answer that the kids like, which is that she was just a regular woman who learned witchcraft and, well, she learned through the Faerie trials why Scotland was not the best place to be doing that. Not just because we burned all our witches, but because we, as Scots, are known to be quite nosy. Then others say she was not just a nymph, she was a powerful goddess herself, from the underworld, yes, Hecate. When Hecate, among the last of the Titans whom Zeus spared because she was the protectress of entrances, this allowed her to come and go from Hades' underworld whenever she pleased. And come and go she did. She travelled the world of man and kindled fires in the feminine shadows of the world. And she enchanted the places around her, bringing strange powers to the ones who invoked her presence. And not surprisingly, she became more interested with some places more than others. Also not surprisingly, one of those such places was here. These Scottish lands have been haunted since time began, so I'm told. And reader or audience of mine, that makes sense, of course. I was not here at the beginning of the haunting of Scotland, but it might have begun when Hecate started showing up. Anyone who's been here can feel what I'm talking about. The haunting of Scotland, I mean. It's a shadow. It's her. And she adopted us Scots. She became NicNevin, and this became her home on earth. It was a hard time for poor folk. It always is, I guess. So they worship someone who offers a better way, or at least a different way. Makes sense. Perfect sense. So, NicNevin is also known as Queen of Peasants. She lured men and women alike. Men who entered her realm became wild animals, wolves and things. The women became witches. Weird sisters, as they say. Now, I told you she grants strange powers to her followers. That's witchcraft. Her followers have been known to collect herbs, leaves, sloe berries and the like, and they are told to make all kinds of things with them. And NicNevin grants them wishes and magic, but it always comes with a strange pricing, you know. Being weird, so to speak, as it's bargaining. If you are weird, that is, if you are granted these special powers, wherein the fey abilities course through your veins, the regular people will know. So you'd better take care to hide it. I guess it's a strange deal to strike. Be granted the powers of the witch, understand the uses of medicines, poisons, clairvoyance, premonition, and curses, but woe betide anyone with such abilities who seeks an audience to show them, eh? You're liable to get right tattled on. I mean, why would you go fooling around with such a one as NicNevin? Nothing good comes out of going in those woods and finding her. You know what I think? I think the poor old lady sought her own solitude in nature, away from the world of gods and goddesses, and away from the civilization of all us tribes, because she is at home there. She's in nature. So, for all the legends and myths, She's content to find herself among the trees and the creatures, and the men she turned into creatures. She's reputed to be grouchy, but that's no surprise because, well, if you were in your own forest paradise and someone comes calling and screams or asks for powers, wouldn't you be grumpy too? It is the ones who are lost who find her in the maze of curiosities in those dark and tangled trees. Lord knows what they find in there. I think they find they are more lost than ever. Well now, because I measure myself a man who sprinkles some good Celtic salt on everything he hears, I'll give you a dose of my own personal history of NicNevin. Well, not my own experience. I never saw her, God be praised, but of an old uncle of mine, gone a good many years ago. He had a good life, family, success, church. He's passed on now, but I remember on his deathbed, he asked me, his own nephew, to be there. When the rest of the family left his room for a break, I stayed on. I told him what a good life he had. And in the sunlight that warmed him from the window by his dark wooden bed frame, he beckoned me closer and said, "It's because, and Colum, you're the only one I'm telling this to. It's because," and his voice went so low I could barely hear it if not for its emphatic tone. He continued, "I used to go into NicNevin's woods when I was a curious young man." He nodded gravely off my look, quite aghast at his seriousness. "One day I saw her," says he, chilling my blood as he did so. "I looked at her for a moment, not wanting to believe it, and she stared back at me. I ran like hell out of those woods, and I never went back. I worked hard at everything after that. Sometimes I close my eyes and I swear I see hers staring right back at me. And then I watched my poor uncle's eyes close, and that was that."